SMTs. So you probably have heard me say the term SMT. I kind of just casually mention it, and once you understand them, you'll know what I'm talking about. So an SMT stands for smart money technique. It's basically a divergence in the market, and it's where you will often find smart money reversals. Okay, that's what they all say. Um, who knows? It could be dumb money for all we know, right? It's obviously all algorithms, but a bullish SMT is when one index makes a lower low and the other index makes a higher low. Okay, and a bearish SMT is one index makes a lower high and the other one makes a higher high. So you can't get a bearish SMT at the bottom and you can't get a bullish SMT at the top. Okay, a bullish SMT always has to be off the lows and a bearish SMT always has to be off the highs. That's how it is. Okay, and a lot of newer people only use SMTs between ES and NQ, and those are where you're going to find your stronger divergences. But you can use YM, and the farther you get down the road, the more I recommend using YM because you will miss some key things not using YM. So SMT is not a confirmation, or is a confirmation. It's not an entry model, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, a lot of people think just because one index made a higher high and one made a lower high, it just means you can enter. Unless you are a master turtle super, which turtle soup basically means you're shorting as soon as we hit a high, which I don't do, then you should not be using SMTs for that. Okay, SMTs are not for entries. Okay, it does not mean to short if we have no framework, and this is where people misunderstand. So, if we have a bearish SMT but are still holding a bullish FVG, that does not mean a short. Just because we have an SMT does not mean that like the order flow is likely still bullish. Again, unless you're trying to be a super and trying to get in early and you're confident in the bias, do not short an SMT that's bearish. You have to wait for some sort of framework, or you have to wait for the short model to come. Okay, and a lot of people ask me like, how do you know? Like how do you know which one's gonna be stronger and weaker? You really don't. I've seen like, how do I explain this? The ES or NQ, which I usually trade, I just stick to NQ. That's it. I've seen NQ make a higher low, which is supposedly stronger, but ES ends up hitting the high and NQ doesn't. So there's not really a good way to tell every time, which is why like I'm always watching both ES and NQ. So if I'm in a long in NQ and ES ends up hitting the high, I'll like scale more than usual. So there's actually a really good example of this today. So if I go to the chart today, we had an SMT earlier in the day between ES and NQ. Basically, what happened is at this point in time, um, you can see that NQ ended up failing to hit its high, and ES did. And what happened was right when ES took out the high, NQ dumped like, how many points was this? NQ ended up dumping like 30 points. So if I ever see that, if I ever see ES at the high and NQ not, and I'm in NQ, I'll scale more than usual typically. And you can also see right here, look what happened. There's a big bearish SMT here, okay, right here. And you can see that ES ends up taking its high, okay, and NQ doesn't. I would have scaled more than usual and not have held the full position till this high because I know ES already hit its high. If you're an ES trader, well, again, good for you. You're probably already out. But you can clearly see this was tough for a lot of NQ traders because I'm assuming a lot of people thought that this was going to hit, but it didn't, which is fine. But yeah, so that's why I scale more than usual, like just in case. Okay, so just be cautious of that. So this is a little model. Okay, this is a bearish SMT. Let's say this is NQ and this is ES. Where you can see NQ makes a higher high, ES makes a lower high. So that's a bearish SMT. And remember, without a model, this means nothing. And then this would be a bullish SMT. So NQ makes a lower low and ES makes a higher low. And just because we make a higher low here does not mean this will be the stronger one. Remember that. Just stick to one and make sure you're watching the other and understand what I just said about if you're in NQ and ES hits, make sure to scale more than usual, if not everything. But obviously sometimes if there's like, let's say there's like equal highs above, well then I'm assuming NQ would go hit the equal highs. I've seen it one time where NQ actually didn't take out the equal highs because ES had an SMT, but typically we will. So right here, a lot of times I say, whenever we're looking for an IFVG, we need a liquidity sweep. But if there's ever an IFVG and we don't have a liquidity sweep, or we don't sweep some sort of big low, this is still valid because there's an SMT at the bottom. Okay, so remember this. Sometimes there will not be a liquidity sweep. Sometimes it'll just be an SMT where NQ will make a higher low and not sweep liquidity, and ES will. This still counts as a liquidity sweep and still makes this IFVG valid. Okay, so that's an important fact when when looking at SMT. Okay, so I'm just gonna go over a few more examples, okay, on the chart. What I would suggest doing is, when you're starting to look for SMTs, I think there's an SMT indicator. So if you just type in SMT divergence by TFO, this is a great indicator. You can turn on two of these. So you can look at the SMTs between YM and ES. So I'm on NQ right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn on for ES, pivot strength. I'll just leave it 5, and then I'll just leave it like that for now. And then I'm gonna change this to YM. Okay. So YM we're gonna do, and I'll just keep pivot strength 5. And you can see we get an SMT here, which means ES and YM here, it looks like, make a lower low, or make a higher low, but it looks like NQ makes a lower low. So you can see what happens after we get a long setup. And we don't actually get a long setup until here. So the long setup would be validated here, okay? And if you look right here, and I'll show you guys. So if I go to like this chart, you can see, if I go to the 5-minute, you should be able to see the SMT without the indicator. Okay. So let's just let me go down here more. Okay, this is way off. Okay, so this is from today. So you can see it says there was an SMT here between YM and NQ. So what I'm thinking is YM probably didn't make a lower high or lower low here. So let me just check this. Okay, let's see. And indeed, it's right. So you can see right here, YM didn't take out that low, made it higher low. And you can see we get a little retracement here, but the bias in the higher time frame was still bearish. So again, that's the importance of understanding the bias. Again, I go over daily bias in the other section of the course, but the daily bias was bearish here because on the 4-hour we have an intermediate term lows down here, and we have a lot of momentum towards it. So I'm figuring the daily bias is bearish, which means the bullish SMTs aren't going to work as well. All right, but you can see whenever we get an SMT signal, okay, it does not mean to just short automatically. Again, I know after a lot of these, we do get along. Like you can see here, this is a big one. We clearly go way up after this, all right? So you guys can see we go way up after this. And even this one, like this one doesn't dump fully, but ES makes a new high here, and we end up dumping like 30 points, which is still a good amount. And then we dump off this SMT as well. So you're going to see, if you use this indicator, you'll be able to see it. So here we have another SMT. This one wouldn't be valid because obviously we're midnight, no one even trades. You shouldn't be trading this time. Ideally, you're looking for these during the kill zones. Okay. Another SMT here. That's obviously overnight. This is overnight as well. Okay, this one. So this one is at 740. This is before the kill zone. And you can see YM makes a higher low here, NQ makes a lower low, and you can see we end up getting a decent long setup back to this high up here before the fair value gap. Okay. But remember, just because we have an SMT does not mean short. You really need a short model. Okay. You're really looking for an inversion model off of these SMTs. Okay. So just be cautious of this. You're going to get a decent amount of SMTs. I'm assuming if I lowered the strength, there'd probably be more. But I'm not going to mark every SMT. Like if I go to 1 here, let's see if it gives us more. Yeah, it gives us way more. They're going to see there's a lot of mini SMTs. Even this one was a nice SMT here. So again, you're looking for a long setup at this SMT form. So the SMT here would be if we got this long setup. So that is an SMT for you guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Again, this can be a little confusing because people always think, oh, if there's an SMT, I'm just going to long. But you have to wait for the model. Okay. But yeah, that's basically an SMT simplified. I would strongly suggest using this indicator when you start off. It's going to help you. But I typically just look for SMTs on my own now. And yeah, that's going to be it for now. See you in the next one. So your assignment for this video is going to be find 3 good inversion setups. Okay, I'm assuming you're going to want to learn about inversions first that use SMTs. Okay, so find 3 good inversion setups that are all off of SMTs.